Disney is a huge problem these days. Disney has become so woke, too woke for its own good. But, they're getting a taste of their own medicine because Ron DeSantis wasn't having it. Ron DeSantis down in Florida was like, guys, this ain't flying. This isn't working. And he was right to do this. So big news out today that Disney got beat by none other than the state of Florida and Ron DeSantis. I'll share with you the headline from the Journal here. Wall Street Journal, Disney succumbs to Ron DeSantis in fight over Florida tax district. You better believe it. You better believe that one. I'll tell you, Disney deserved this in some ways. Look, I have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings about Ron. I think that, he was sort of the wrong place at the wrong time and probably didn't have any chance of ever really doing anything because of that, because nobody was really going to take on Trump, if you would, successfully. And so that's the upshot of that one. But Disney backed down on Wednesday from a long-running legal battle, reads the Journal, with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over control of the Orlando area land that is home to its most important resort, ending years-long feud and handing the governor a political victory. The company's truce with the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, the entity that oversees the resort's land and infrastructure, gives DeSantis more power and influence over the company's Florida operations. It also paves the way for Disney to expand its theme parks and resort properties in the state. But everything they have done, according to DeSantis, is in the best interest of the state of Florida, and we've been vindicated on all those actions. Don't forget, remember they had that Reedy Creek Improvement District, and Walt Disney himself, when he did the original deal, he got all these acres, and he was like, okay, I want to govern this myself because, hey, if we want to build a roller coaster and we need to build it really high, we're going to have the ability to do that. We can't get bogged down in all this red tape, bureaucratic red tape. So the state said, okay, you want that swap land? Go for it. You can do what you want there. And so they had this special deal. But nobody else had a deal like that. And the deal had kind of run its course. This was done years and years ago. And so Ron DeSantis sued, in part because, don't forget, everything that was going on with the schools and the gender stuff in the schools, et cetera. So they came to a head. Ron sued, or rather, I should say, Disney sued, and they lost. So Ron DeSantis winning his case. We're happy to see that. Big news coming out of Florida, as I said. Disney is in a lot of trouble overall. It's not just what it's been going through with Ron DeSantis, but when you think about how the company as a whole is increasingly more challenged because it's lost its way. It's lost who it was and needs to be. This wokeism as a virus really has kind of taken over. And it's caused the company to produce a whole bunch of flops, like one after another, because it's so focused on having this diversity in color, in gender, in sexual preference, as opposed to diversity of thought. It's very similar to the MSNBC thing, right? Like we don't want anybody that's a Republican MAGA person here. MAGA is the enemy, right? You have to be a never Trumper. We'll take you then as a conservative. So there's not any kind of real diversity, even if they have a bunch of different looking people. That's not intellectual diversity. And so that's sort of what Disney has been and continues to suffer from. All the people that they hire, they all come from the same schools, they all think alike, and they're all producing the same kinds of content. And so along comes Nelson Peltz. Nelson Peltz is a billionaire investor. And he's like, you know what? I think this company should be worth more. I think this company ought to be doing different things. I think the company should have a succession plan. Thank you very much. Like Bob Iger, you're not going to live forever. And we need to know what's going to happen when you're not there, because when you put the other Bob in, things didn't go so well. But maybe that was deliberate, right? Because maybe in that particular case, they didn't really want somebody who could take over in a meaningful way, shall I say, for Bob Iger. And so there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that is very, very, very relevant and needs to be addressed. Well, I want to share with you guys a news story that just came out, and it's kind of telling because it feels now like the mainstream Hollywood media is starting to turn on Bob Iger. Is it because of Nelson Peltz? Is it because the share price has been effectively cut in half just in the last 3 years? It used to be trading around $200 a share. Now it's trading about 100 and change. Take a look at what the Hollywood Reporter put out today. This is great. I mean, you can see my little scribbling on my screen. I'm like, wow, Bob Iger's invincible era is over. It reads, and this is Alex Warprin, who I guess is over at Hollywood Reporter now. He writes, after a major Wall Street firm sides with activist Nelson Peltz ahead of an April 3rd shareholders meeting, investors are questioning how the CEO plans to plot out growth and his own succession. So this is a big deal. So this publication itself is super woke. I mean, it's the Hollywood Reporter, for goodness sakes. And Bob is super popular in Hollywood. And Bob is generally liked by people at the Hollywood Reporter. So to run a headline with that picture, it's a wow kind of headline, guys. And it suggests to me that Nelson has a leg to stand on. Now, everybody's like, oh, can you believe Nelson said that? The other day he said something crazy like, well, why do I have to go to a movie and have only a black cast? Or why do I have to go to a movie and, well, here it is. Here's the quote. Why do I have to have a Marvel that's all women? Not that I have anything against women, but why do I have to do that? He's sort of saying to the producers, like, can't you just kind of be a little more inclusive? Why can't I have Marvels that are both men and women? Or why do I need to have an all black cast? Like, why? Like, you know, mix it up a little. And he's got a point, but like, this is no-go territory. This is dangerous territory, because no sooner did he say these things. It was in an interview with the FT. It came out on Friday of last week. No sooner did he say this, but Bob Iger and company and the really sort of well-heeled PR machine going on there at Disney, they started attacking Nelson Peltz, the activist investor, for saying these things, saying, well, clearly, he doesn't know what he's talking about. How could we ever have this guy involved in our company? And Blackwell's Capital, that's a firm that has sided with Bob Iger. They came out and slammed him for his, quote, disturbing statements about the Marvels and Black Panther. Okay, so you see how this is going down, except that, okay, that was Friday, and here we are today, Wednesday, like a week away from the meeting, the big meeting on April 3rd, the shareholders meeting, and shareholders are like, yeah, maybe Nelson has a point. I mean, after all, you keep producing sequels. Can you come out with something new, please? And you have no succession plan for Bob Iger. Who the heck is going to take over? We can't have a repeat of Bob Chapek. Or then shareholders are really on the skids. So this is a problem for Disney. And they even admitted in their annual shareholder report that came out last fall, they said, you know, part of our problem is that our clientele doesn't really see eye to eye with where many of our employees are. Okay, guys, like, it's a business. Da-da-da! Shocker. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Bud Light, right? Because it's a business. And if you get a bunch of fratty guys drinking your beer and they love your beer, are you really going to just alienate them? If you're Disney and you've got a bunch of families, like wholesome families from the middle of the country that love going to Disney World, are you going to alienate them? I mean, I'm sorry, as a shareholder, I'd say this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So it gets me back to why I'm such a proponent for doing your own research and thinking about what you're investing in and not taking whatever the big banks are trying to hand you by way of their research that they disseminate down. And it's so clunked up with a bunch of gobbledygook, you know, they can't even tell you in English what they really think. And so my thought is we need to actually communicate with people, like real information about companies, because this is their future. And we need to get the ESG stuff out of there, and you need to make educated decisions. So again, 76research.com. I'm so proud of this. Rob has done an incredible job alongside me. He's really, like, he's hardcore analyst, like numbers. I'm very macro, so I can kind of see the big picture. And then he gets in there and he digs and he digs and he digs and he digs, and he has all these different criteria for what he's looking at. You know, yesterday we talked about dividends and the sort of distraction, for example, of yields. Like, you're always looking for the yield, but you also have to take into consideration the kind of company it is. I loved when he said, it's like, can you judge how wealthy a person is by the car they drive? You can't, because a lot of people just choose to, you know, drive an old jalopy. has nothing to do with what their wealth might actually be. You might make certain perceptions, you might have a perception, you might make an interpretive sort of analysis quickly of what you think that person's net worth is, but it may have nothing to do with who they are. So it's the same kind of thing with companies. So you can't just look, for example, at the yield in a dividend stock. He's got 10 to 15 plays in the income builder portfolio, and he changes them out if he thinks it's needed. And he and I work very, very closely on this. We have a new report coming for you on Friday. So go sign up, 76research.com. I actually put it in the chat earlier. You know what? I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. It's easy to remember though, don't you think? 76 Research. And we chose 76, obviously, because 1776 was a pretty big year. And there's something about freedom and independence and sort of economic prosperity that all go hand in hand.